Hey, Jamie,
Yes.
I just warned you, the microphones in the council chamber are really, really sensitive for us.
Okay.
So you have to like be way, way far away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. How's that?
It's like it's overmodulating. It's really bad. I
Okay.
don't know if there's a volume control there or not.
Oh, we actually need them on?
Yes, you do.
Okay, we're going to work on it here.
Okay.
Okay, try that now.
How's that, Tom? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Miss Polly. That was for older Neil, perhaps.
Either Tom. Okay. Well, being 4:30 and I see Tom and Tom are on WebEx and we have 3 in the chambers. If this gets too loud, those of you at home, let me know. But I will, being 4:31, actually, I'll call the meeting of the May 4th Parks Recreation Committee to order. I'll take a roll call since we do have some online. So, Mr. Neal?
Here.
Mr. Peckham?
Here.
Mr. Killian?
Here.
Mr. Larson?
Here.
And Ms. Watson?
Here.
All right, great. We have a full committee, and welcome to the new members of our Parks and Recreation Committee. At the next meeting, I will be bringing forward some background on our department and bringing you all up to speed, because we have 3 of the 5 new members. But tonight, we wanted to keep the meeting fairly brief with what we had to get done, as well as picking the chair and the vice chair. So as many of you know, or most of you know, I'm Jamie Polly, the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Director for Wausau and Marathon County, so I wear 2 hats. I reached out to you and gave you a little bit of background of our department, but we'll have more to come on how this joint department works. It's a little bit unique. With that, I guess I wanted to, with the introductions of item 3, just wanted to quickly ask each of you council members if you could just say a few words about yourself. I know you've talked about yourself at the council meetings, but particularly why you're interested in our committee, the Parks and Recreation Committee, and what you hope to get from this next couple of years as the committee goes forward. So I guess with that, I'll ask Mr. Larson. We'll go kind of around the room, and I'll ask you if you could just give me a brief idea.
Hi, I'm Lou Larson, and basically why I'm here is because for a few years or a couple years that we've been following up with the Riverside Park stuff, and I've been very frustrated with the, I would say, the non-progress that we've had down there with the soil testing, and now I just saw recently that the old, there was an old ice rink down there that was fallen down and dilapidated, and now I see that today it was picked up and stuff, and I would just like to see our constituents, the city of Wausau, have safe, clean parks to work in, you know, and hopefully we can get some progress with this Riverside Park thing. And with that, I'll stop.
Just a little bit of information about the hockey rink. That's not an old dilapidated hockey rink. That's actually, it's our bike polo rink that we do lay down during the winter so that it's not up and the boards don't get worse. Yeah, it needs some work. We have to fix it up with some damage that happened over the winter, but it is used, so.
Yes, I believe that's what Mr. Killian had said too.
Correct, yep. All right, Ms. Watson?
Hi, nice to meet you, Sarah Watson. District 8, I guess my interest in the committee was that, I don't know, I think just our parks and our recreation in Wausau is so important in development of our economy. So I really am interested in the economic development and the economy and that kind of thing. And I just think that aspect of our economy is so important and crucial. Plus, I enjoy all the parks that we have. So I would just want to be a part of that to keep it going forward.
Good, thank you. All right, we'll go, since whoever is it, let's see, Mr. Neal is the first one up on the screen there.
Oh. Okay, thanks. Well, this will be my 4th term on this committee, so I have enjoyed it, these past 6 years, and I'm glad to be on it again. I'm a big proponent of quality of life and amenities in town that help to make our community more enjoyable and more attractive to newcomers and visitors. We've done an awful lot in the time I've been there, and very proud of a lot of the things we've done with the parks. And we also, this committee is also in charge of the programs that protect our street trees, all those trees on the boulevards outside your homes. We deal with things like the emerald ash borer, or saving trees during street construction projects and things like that. So I'm really a believer in that. Our tree canopy and our parks are very important parts of our environment here. They have true financial value and aesthetic value and an important value to families and kids. So I've just always enjoyed being on this committee.
Thank you. Mr. Killian?
Thank you. Tom Killian, District 3. I believe that one component that's very important of the city and county resources are its natural resources. And frankly, and fortunately, we have a strong set of those in this area of the state. And so, in my opinion, parks in a way serve as a nexus to connect our constituents and our community to those resources. And I hope that however I can, I am able to serve on this committee in a way that helps safeguard those resources and helps to make them as accessible to all people in the community. And I'm also very fond of and feel they're important environmental justice concepts. And if and when possible, I would like to try to integrate with my colleagues some of those concepts and principles into how we address parks. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Peckham?
Thank you. Hello, all. And this would be my third term on this body, and it is one of my favorite duties related to serving the city. I have spent some time over the weekend thinking about this meeting and the decisions that would be made here, and I just thought, well, why is this important to me? And I thought, well, Pat, what have you been doing for the last 6 or 8 weeks? And so I went back and kind of compiled how I've spent my time, my wife and I. We have visited Memorial Park, Depke Park, Eau Claire River Conservancy, McMillan Marsh, Path Woods, Marathon Park, DC Everest Park, Schofield Park, River Edge Trail, Rookery Park, Bluegill Bay County Park, Rib Mountain State Park, Dells of the Eau Claire County Park, Riverside Park, Big Oak Plain County Park, Isle of Ferns, Oak Island, Meade State Wildlife Area, Bitsky Bird Walk, Wisconsin River County Forest Unit a couple of times, Sunnyvale County Park, Irma Road County Forest Unit, the Eau Claire River Trail in Weston, and Radke Point Park in Schofield. So I think that
Wow.
kind of, yeah, he's one of those guys. So that's about it.
All right. Thank you all very much. I look forward to working with each and every one of you on a lot of different issues. So before we get to the main topic that's on our agenda today that is a timely discussion, we need to have election of a chair and a vice chair for the committee, and then I will relinquish my duties right now over to that new chair. Unless you want me to continue, we can do that. But I think we'll start with the chair, and do I have any nomination for a chair? Mr. Larson?
I don't know of anyone who's more passionate about the parks in this city than Tom Killian, and therefore I nominate Tom Killian.
Okay. Mr. Killian, do you accept that nomination?
Yes, I would accept, Miss Polly.
Okay. Do we have any other nominations for chair?
This is Tom Neal here. I would nominate Pat Peckham, our own Grizzly Adams. I think he's done a great job as chair for this committee. He's cemented relationships with people at the state level, of course, people on staff, people within the community. And as you can see, and as you heard, he's a user of our parks extensively. This is truly in his heart. He's worked hard at it. I really believe he has earned another go at it because he feels strongly about it, and I appreciate what he's done, and I support him going forward.
And Mr. Peckham, do you accept that nomination?
Yes, and thank you.
Okay. Any other nominations for chair? All right, now I got to figure out how to vote for this.
Does it need to be a?
Yeah,
separate vote?
we
Okay.
need to have a vote.
I can.
Go ahead.
Could I just say a couple of words?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
I just kind of looking at my role as chair and my activities as chair, one of the things I really think was appreciated is that not every meeting, but most meetings, each of the committee members got an email from me prior to the preparation of the agenda, soliciting their suggestions, so we have an agenda that reflects the interests and concerns of the committee meeting. And also because I am retired and have the time, I did something that I don't know if any other committee chair has done in recent times. That is, the agenda has been prepared with, during an in-person meeting with the department head. I did that with Bill Duncanson, and Jamie was willing to do that as well. And so we have more time to think about what's going on the agenda and how we're going to present it, what information we're going to need, all that kind of stuff. And so I think we did a better job on that. And so I just think that struck me as being noteworthy. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Killian, do you have anything to say? I don't want to pass over you as well.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize and thank Alder Peckham for his time in the past as chair. As he noted, I think it was clear that he put a lot of time and energy into that, and I would thank him for it. But I would note, and this would not just be on this committee, and it would be in my role as a council member in general, although I do have a day job, I approach every item of the council and any committee I'm on with the utmost rigor. So, I will always be rigorous and put forth due diligence, even though I do have a day job, unlike my retired colleagues. So thank you for the nomination, Alder Larson, and thank you, Alder Peckham, for the time you've put in to date in this committee. Thank you.
Okay, so now we can vote?
So we can do a polling for people on the WebEx.
Okay.
I'm not sure how you want to do for people in here, if you just want them to write and pass on to you and then.
Yeah, that would be good. If you could write on a piece of paper so for Tom and Tom that are at home, there's a polling question where you'll be able to choose. If you could fill that out, and then,
Do you know who I'm going to vote for? I mean, you know.
well, put it down anyway. And then we'll count them up. This is the first committee I've had multiple nominations for chair, so I'm sorry that I'm not really savvy at this yet. But if we could write those down, pass them on, and then we'll decide, and then we'll take nominations for vice chair as well.
There you are, Ms. Polly.
All
You know
right.
it's up to you.
And we have one for each at home?
Not very anonymous then, is it?
Okay.
It's all good.
So after a vote with the 5, we have 2 for Mr. Killian and 3 for Mr. Peckham. So Mr. Peckham will be the chair of the committee moving forward at this time. So congratulations, Mr. Peckham.
Thank you.
Do you want to take it from here for vice chair, or you want me to continue?
No, I think I can take it, I guess. Say thank you again, appreciate it. It does mean something to me. And we need nominations for vice chair, and I would welcome those at this time.
This is Tom Neal. I would nominate Mr. Killian for vice chair for more than one reason. One, his obvious passion on the subject, and two, as he mentioned, his due diligence would be great. And number three, I always think it's good for newcomers to the council, when possible, to get a vice chair position so they can sort of start easing their way into the committee process.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. I think we have a second over there across the room. Mr. Larson?
Yes, you do.
Very good. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? I think that has to be asked 3 times. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Nominations are closed. If somebody would like to move for a unanimous ballot, I think that can happen.
I would move for unanimous ballot.
All those in favor of Mr. Killian say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Killian has been unanimously selected as our vice chair and will serve in my absence if that occurs.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. I welcome that, and I also applaud Mr. Killian's citizen activist, I would say, achievements, I guess, how he has demonstrated his interest and, as Mr. Larson said, his passion. Okay, we need to approve the minutes. Everybody has had a chance to look at them. I didn't find any problem with them. Anybody else?
Move to approve.
Very good. The 2 who were here, were sitting here. Second, to approve the minutes.
I will
Second.
second.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. We have a motion and a second on the minutes. Any questions, concerns? All those in favor of approving the minutes from our March 2 meeting, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you very much. And I think we're going to hear from Ms. Polly on item 6. Drum roll, please. Discussion and possible action postponing the opening of the Wausau pools. And I'm sure that you've consulted with the appropriate parties and have some guidance for us.
We have, I think, a good discussion topic in front of you today for your very first park committee meeting. It's one that I'm looking for direction on going forward. We do also, I want to just mention that we have on the line Karen Powers, our recreation supervisor for the Wausau and the county, to answer any questions that you might have as far as operations, even going forward, what operations might look like. I do also see Mr. Osterbrink on the line. He's from the village of Weston. They're kind of following along with what we're doing, and we've all been working together. And I believe, I don't know for sure because I only see colors, but I believe we might have a representative from from Rothschild Schofield Pool Aquatic Center as well, to help chime in, because this is not necessarily just a city of Wausau deal. This is a regional deal that we're all trying to work together on and have the same outlook, the same message. We're bouncing ideas off each other daily because this is not an easy discussion to have. So I'll get right into that and talking about where we stand with our pools. So our department manages the 3 Wausau pools and the splash pad for the county. So today we're here to talk about the 3 Wausau pools. Tomorrow with the county we'll talk about the splash pad. We had a meeting, I had a meeting, and Karen had a meeting about a week ago with the mayor, with the county administrator, and with our health officer to talk about the pools and where we see this going with the COVID-19 situation and our regulations. So as you know, the governor has put together the Badger Bounce Back Plan. As you also know, there was a lawsuit against that plan, and it should come out from the Supreme Court tomorrow, I believe, a decision on whether they're going to uphold the order to extend it to the end of May, and then if a new plan has to be put in place. But as of today, we're working off of the current plan that's in place, and that's the advice we've been given from our health officer. So looking at the Badger Bounce Back Plan, it's got steps, and I did bring, I know you all don't have that if you're online, but there is a grid that they've put out there, I gotta find it, of where we are at in the plan, and there's steps that go with it. So the overview of the Badger Bounce Back Plan is, first is the Safer at Home order, which we are currently in until, at this state, until May 26th. So that would mean that no groups larger than 10 would be together for only specific reasons like religious gatherings. It would not allow for us to have anything open that would have more than 10 here. That goes until May 26th. Our pools are set right now to open on June 6th. The next phase 1 of the Bounce Back Plan, goes to allowing no more than 10 people maximum in any one area. So we know at our 3 pools, it requires 10 guards up at a time, at a minimum, to open the pools. So therefore, we would not be able to open the pools at all during the first phase. We know that because no public would be allowed. In talking with our health officer, obviously nobody knows when we'll get to phase 2 or phase 3, but she thinks it's highly unlikely that we will be to phase 2 by the end of June, beginning of July. And then in phase 2, the stipulation is no more than 50 people in any one area. So as I mentioned, we have 10 guards up. That's a requirement to open the facilities. We have 1 or 2 staff that would be in admissions. We probably would not open concessions, but we need that staff on site to be able to do extra cleaning that would be required. So we're looking at about allowing maybe 35 people in to the pool at a time under that phase 2 plan. Phase 3 is when we can have as many people in one area as possible, or as there's no maximum, and then we could open up the pools to full capacity. So originally the idea that we had discussed, and what I was thinking coming into this meeting, was that we would talk about possibly postponing the scheduling or the opening of the pools from June 6th to at least July 1st with a tentative date of July 1st. And that is being able to allow us the next 4 weeks of May or 3 weeks of May to better follow where the state is going, what those requirements might be, and to decide what our options are. With that, though, in a conversation I had this morning with the Village of Weston and with Rothschild Schofield, we all have concerns either way. It's do you push it off based on the hope that we can open it for a limited number of people, and then if we can, what does that look like? We have an option maybe to open for 2-hour time slots for 35 people at a time, first come, first serve. Our season pass holders are pretty much, the passes are out the window. We'd have to figure out what we do with them maybe for next year, but we couldn't give priority treatment if we only have 35 slots every couple hours. That also entails us probably reducing the fee, because now they're only paying for a minimal amount of time to come in, and then they're going to be asked to leave. The idea of holding off another month gives us the potential to lose staff. Right now, we have all of our lifeguards hired. They're waiting on cue for us to say yay or nay that we're going to open. They're also looking for other jobs. Lifeguarding isn't something we can just move people into. It's a certification that they have to have for safety. We have to start training these guards and getting them, they're already trained, but we have to start doing our in-service trainings with them early June if we're going to open in July. We have to start the mechanics of the pool early June if we're going to open in July. And then, what is required with cleaning and the 6 feet social distancing. In all of the bounce back phases, still the 6 feet of physical distancing is required when possible. So we've talked about we could remove all chairs from the deck and have people bring their own and put X's on the deck when they're in the water. How do we manage that? There's a lot of concerns about staffing, and our lifeguards are there trained to watch the water and to watch instances on the water. They're not there to watch whether or not people are too close together, and that's a distraction for them. So there's a lot of questions that I would like the committee to have a big discussion on, because I think what we do will go in line with what Weston and Rothschild and Schofield do, or how we all work together. And there's you can ask questions of those two entities as well. Because I think as a region, we have 5 aquatic centers. If we can do this as a joint discussion, I think that's the best way to move forward. Because if Wausau were to close, let's say, and Rothschild, Schofield, and Weston were to say, we're going to open, they've just now increased the number of people that are going to attend those facilities because we've closed, and vice versa. If they close, we're going to increase. It's really a safety concern. It's how do we manage that social distancing and the physical distancing, the cleanliness, the keeping our staff and our patrons safe. The pools are an amenity that we provide our community. So looking at budget-wise, the pools do not make money. We run about 120, I have all my numbers from last year here. We run about 140,000 that the city subsidizes to run our pools as a service to our community. We take about $112,000 in revenue in a typical year is what we did last year, and our expenses were about $255,000. Now, our expenses are going to go down some because our seasonal labor will go down by not opening for 3 weeks where we normally would be open. Our concession and food may go down if we decide not to open the concession stand. But otherwise, we still have, all of our utility charges. Our chemicals are a really big chunk of our budget to operate, and then the rest of the guarding staff for the rest of the summer. For revenue-wise, we are looking at a reduction in revenue if we open later. We also are looking at a reduction in revenue because pool passes, really that is not feasible to offer the pool passes if you have to limit the number of people coming in. And then if we're limiting hours, we're limiting the hourly rate of what we're charging. So our revenue is going down as well. I have been getting quite a few phone calls. I believe the mayor's been getting quite a few phone calls too, to not close our pools, to keep them open for our children. But I think in the safety of our community, this is a really needed discussion on how we move forward and how you want us as staff to move forward. It's not an easy decision for anybody, but with the guidelines of the Badger Bounce Back Plan, it looks like maybe at a minimum we would be able to open July and August. It would be about 6 weeks worth of opening, limiting the number of people to less than 50 within our pools. One other thing I'll add before we get to, I know Tom, Mr. Neal, you have your hand up, but one other thing I wanted to add is one thing that Karen and I have really thrown around is how do we maybe continue some sort of swimming lesson? Because swimming is a life safety skill that we feel is very, very important for our children in our community to keep learning. We thought maybe we could try to keep one pool open just for swimming lessons and try to see how that works. Now with swimming lessons, you also still have to do the 6 feet physical distancing, so we thought maybe we could increase the requirement of parents needing to be in the water with their children and the instructors on deck. For more than, usually we do that up to that parent taught class. After that, then they're on their own. Maybe we do it up to level 3 is an option, but then if you're adding the parents to the pool, that's increasing the number that's in the pool, that's reducing the number of kids you can have in each session. So we ran numbers briefly on if we did that, and we'd be able to still run 3 sessions, but we'd still be at about a $700 loss per session. So about a $2,100 loss for the season by offering a limited number of swimming lessons. And then we still have that's not even including the expenditures for the operations of the pool. So it's a significant loss beyond that. So it's a struggle. We'd like to say it's an easy decision, but it's not. So, Mr. Neal, do you have comments?
Yes, thanks. I appreciate it. Well, one thing that we've been hearing for the past several weeks over and over again is that people try to put together timelines, but the virus doesn't have one. And every time you set a date for something, well, there's the peak has not, reached yet, and we're still waiting for that downward slide, and even on the downward slide, you still have issues about, social distancing and safety. I think about, people trying to make employment decisions based on a possible due date, timeline, which might not happen because we could get closer to that time and we find that there's been a spike or a concern and we really have to back off. I did think about trying to enhance our swimming lessons program, but with the 6-foot distancing, it seems like that'd be problematic too. I don't really see an upside to committing to open because any date we pick is going to be subject to realities when that date starts coming closer. So, I mean, I feel we might have to look at not opening this summer.
Yeah, so one thing I wanted to add is when we look at dates, the original thought was we'd postpone to a potential July 1st opening date, and then the decision would have to be made for sure by this committee at the June meeting, because we have to know by about that time for staffing reasons and as far as even filling the pools and getting them ready. So really that's buying us about 4 weeks, well, 3 weeks from now. Because right now we'd be filling the pools if we are going to move forward with that June 6th date. So that's one of the questions. Do we postpone possibly to July 1st and make that decision in 3 weeks? Or do we look at it from the reality that even if we are to open somewhat in July, it's a limited amount to no more than 35 people in the pool at a time? And then with the questions. Mr. Larson?
I am for that. I would hate to see like Mr. Neal mentioned, the disease has no timeline, and I think, it's reasonable enough to take a look at this in 3 weeks again and evaluate it then. I'm a hot tub guy, and I spend a lot of time in that. And I also read something, I don't know for what it's worth, but the Center of Disease Control, they had also, I read that the chlorine in the pools will not create the virus, and it will actually kill the virus in you that creates the coronavirus. So I believe if we keep our pools sanitized and stuff in a normal manner, and I don't think we should jump the gun and just throw away the whole season as of yet. It's just too early.
Yeah, anybody who's been on the calls with the state association with me, I know Karen or Sean, you're out there as well. I believe the information about the chlorine is that it can't be spread through the chlorine. I don't know that it actually kills it in you.
No.
So the chlorine.
Correction, it doesn't kill the virus, but it kills the virus in you that creates the coronavirus. So it will not, there's a virus in you that controls, that starts a coronavirus. It won't kill the virus, the coronavirus, but it kills the virus that starts a coronavirus.
Okay. That I'm not exactly sure about. I can check on that. But I do know that the concern isn't necessarily the chlorine. If they could just be in chlorine, that would be not really that big of a concern. It's the physical distancing amongst people and the exchange of like bodily fluids as well as the hard surfaces that we have available in the bathrooms, on the deck. The play features we have slides and stuff like
Right.
that. So I think that's part of the concern. Ms. Watson, did you have something?
I like the idea of setting a tentative timeline, just because I think now we have to keep our spirits up and the possibility, the hope, right? And I know it's something that maybe we'll have to reevaluate in 3 weeks, but at least it keeps that open, that it's a possibility we can open on July 1st. So do you know any details about what will have to go into sanitation?
I do not know exactly what we will have to do other than the bathrooms will have to be cleaned regularly. I know out in the parks we have to clean the bathrooms at a minimum of once a day. But I know that they're looking at pools per se and the number of traffic and whether we close the locker rooms down. I guess, Karen, are you on the line? Do you have any more information? You were on a call the other day with some regulations. I don't know if Karen's on the line. She should be.
Because I guess my
Okay.
other worry is some of the savings in costs that you mentioned, like less staff and all that, would that be offset by the increase in extra measures you have to take for sanitation?
With that, no, we would, so the only cost savings we would have would just be because we postpone opening those 3 weeks. No, we would not have to add any more staff to do increased cleaning, because the idea that we would possibly not open our concession stand, because there's a physical distancing requirement in the concession stand, we would take that staff that we already have scheduled to do extra cleaning. So we would use the staff we currently, it wouldn't be any, we wouldn't need less staff, but we wouldn't need more staff at this point because we could relocate some.
Jamie, can you hear me now?
Yes, Karen, I can. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I had a little issue with my phone. Good afternoon. I've been on the line with the Wisconsin Park and Recreation Association for weekly aquatics meetings, and we get about 120 aquatics professionals on. And there's an executive committee of that also is on with the CDC and the National Aquatics Association. American Red Cross has tied in and chimed in. We're talking about the surfaces that are constantly touched, handrails, ladders, decks. It's about 60% of the people in an aquatic center are out of the water at any one time, which is a lot of the social distancing issues. Some of the stuff is about what the lifeguards need to do and watch the water versus watch the people on the deck. So it'll be discussions of how we handle social distancing, who's going to be reporting that. We're still finding out what's going to happen as far as the county health department requirements for tracking people who come to the pool in the event of contact there. So there's guidelines that will come from the county health department through the state, which is our governing body, which licenses us in order to operate. So those things will all play into roles of how we do our daily business.
Karen, can I ask, can you hear me, Karen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I can.
What's your sense of the parents' willingness to send their kids to the pools in this situation? Do you think that they're going to, the attendance is going to be, I'm quite sure it's not going to be what it normally would be, but you think it's going to be half, or do you have any sense of that from the discussions that you've had from your fellow professionals?
I think there's a sense of converging fronts. One is I've got to get these kids out of my house. The second is I'm afraid and particularly careful for my kids, and I don't want to do anything to endanger them. And I think that any parent on any day can have both of those feelings going on, particularly as the school year runs down and they get into more time that's not scheduled. So I don't have a sense that, I think that the normal percentages of people who give their kids $5 and put them out the door are still there. But I also think that there's parents that have an expectation of us of safety. And so if they give them $5 and send them out the door, they expect the kid to have a very safe environment to be at the pool in.
Okay, and then Ms. Polly, I wonder if you could run the kind of the dates past us again on the phase 2 and phase 3. And during the expectation is that even with phase 3 that the social distancing requirement would still be in place?
Correct. The Badger Bounce Back Plan doesn't specifically have dates, but we don't move to phase 1 until the state has, I believe it's 80,000 tests per day to complete, and we're not to that point yet. There also has to be a plateau in the number of cases in the state. It's a statewide, it's not a county-wide plan. So if you watched over the last weekend, there was a pretty steady increase in the number of cases statewide with a couple hundred each day. So we're not by any means on the downward slide yet for the state. So we're not even to phase 1 yet. Phase 1 has to be reached when there is a decline in the number of cases documented, as well as the amount of testing that goes into place. Then when we do get to phase one, which our health director or health officer, she doesn't know exactly when we'll get there, but looking at the numbers and from her professional opinion and her colleagues, it's not likely we'll probably get to phase two until the end of June, beginning of July. If even then, if we don't see, if we don't even get to phase one until June, we're probably looking at phase two for a few more weeks. Phase three is probably unlikely we'll get to the summer, in her opinion. But honestly, like you said, nobody knows. Nobody knows where the virus is. There hasn't been a lot of testing as far as who may all have it. She said on a call last week that for every one person testing positive, we can assume 11 people carry the symptoms, but because we don't have the number of tests available. So with that, it looks like we may not even be able to get to that 50-person maximum until the end of June, beginning of July. And honestly, in our opinion, from our department, if we don't open the pools by July 1st, we can't financially or feasibly open them with the staff we have or the dollars that it's worth to get the pools up and running. So that's kind of the deadline date that we chose. But that's, like I said, even a maximum of 50. So most likely this swim season, we will not get beyond that 50.
Okay, and then with the staffing and stuff, are you thinking of, if we open, bring 35 swimmers in at a time, and then they, every 2 hours, rotate?
That's kind of what we threw out there. We haven't actually decided on a plan yet, because we still are following the CDC and the guidelines of what would be required for the physical distancing, for the cleaning, that none of that's come out yet. But in the calls we've been on with the state association, our other colleagues, ideas like that have been thrown out. Some of them may do alternate days for different neighborhoods and different pools, but when you have a public pool that anybody can go to, that's really hard to do. So it'd have to be something where we wristband people, we limit their time so that we can allow people uses. But that's an idea, every 2 hours, with some cleaning in between.
Okay, then is the mayor with us?
I'm here.
You've been in on these discussions before we have, so do you have any guidance for us? Would you like to see us? I think the committee sees this as a major enough decision that if we need a special meeting or something, we would, certainly do that. What are your thoughts, Mayor?
So, yes, I've been in on these discussions a little bit, and I think it's also important. We've talked a lot about what the Badger Bounce Back Plan looks like, and it's not just the Marathon County numbers that they're looking at, it's statewide. So even though maybe we haven't had any new cases in a while, it would affect us if there are new cases elsewhere in the state. I guess my opinion on this is I like that we're taking this thoughtful approach to it. I think it's one of those summer activities that I availed myself to so much when I was a kid. It's super important. And I would hate to just cancel it right now. I do understand that there is a lot of preparation that needs to take place, but I think that Jamie has a good plan. And 3 weeks, I'm willing to sit on this for a little bit. I would love it if we could open the pools. Obviously, it's not really a strong answer, but I think we're taking a deliberative approach that's important.
Yeah.
Chair?
Do you need, yes, sir.
Mr. Neal and Mr. Killian have their hands up.
Mr. Neal, were you up?
I have my hand up. This is Mr. Neal. I don't know. Mr.
Very
Kelly
good.
has to.
Talk to us.
Which one?
Mr. Neal, I guess.
Sorry?
Mr. Neal, yes, you.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right, good. Well, there is the possibility that the state Supreme Court might, act against, the governor's recommendations. But I think from a policy standpoint, even if they do that we as a community would adhere to the spirit of of the bounce back plan in our going forward too. So I don't think we should do anything rash just because the state Supreme Court decides to. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Thank you. Mr. Killian, did you have a comment?
Yes, I did. Thank you. You know, I think a lot of the timeframes and concerns that have been mentioned thus far are reasonable. I wanted to also add an additional layer or layer of the lens that we look through, and that is not just limited to the pools, but frankly, I think, and not just during this stay-at-home period, even afterwards, and with the fallout of it in terms of economics. You know, going into this, Wausau has, roughly a 25% child poverty rate, and while it's not inevitable, I fear that times may get much tougher as things progress. And so, one thing that maybe if my colleagues find it to be valuable, we just want to make sure that whatever decision we make does not have a disparate impact, so that those children who are already facing tough economic circumstances are not excluded from any potential things that do occur. And then if we do find as a committee and council that more and more of these opportunities for our local kids, that those are not going to be viable this summer or this fall or winter, that we look at the opportunity costs and we try to consider how do we replace those for the sake of our local kids, and particularly so that it's equitable and that our poorest children are not left with safe activities that they can partake in whatever the season is. So that's just one thing I wanted to inject. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody? Ms. Polly, go ahead.
Yes, I do have one thing. Karen, are you still on the line? No.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. To Mr. Killian's discussion that he just had, do you want to really quickly brief the committee on what we're doing in connection with the Community Connections program, and what our ideas are there to help still provide some opportunities for the families of the community?
Sure, I can speak to that. At the time before the virus was recognized as being coming to the United States, we had 170 kids representing about 100 families signed up for Community Connections, which is a partnership with the Wausau School District that runs in conjunction with summer school. Summer school runs until noon, then there's a meal, and then a variety of agencies come in for the afternoon to provide a full day of enrichment activities for kids. What happens now that summer school is going virtual is that no bodies can be in the school, so we cannot have the Community Connections be a physical presence on property. But the partners are working together to put together 5-week activity packs that be distributed to families from the Community Connections program, which are kids who are in need of that activity space, and we want them to be based on stuff that is not in front of the screen. They've spent all their remaining school year with screen time, and sometimes on the screen multiple times a day to talk to family and friends. And so these activity packets will be distributed during the food site pickup at the Community Connections school. And we will provide physical activity encouragement, a little bit of where you go on YouTube to look at a family game, arts and crafts from the museum, and these will be distributed in the community, and people have the opportunity to pick them up one time so they don't have to make multiple stops back at their school, and have 5 weeks worth of activity for their kids to do.
Yeah, and part of that activity packet we're going to be putting out will include some water safety information in the June packets, because June is a big month where people will get out, and even if they don't come to the pools, they'll go to the lake or such. So we'll try to do some education that way as well for water safety.
It sounds admirable. You'd like a motion on this, or do you want to move by consensus?
Yeah, I think we need to decide for sure, are we going to, based on the, the reality in that more than likely we won't reach that 50 people maximum until maybe July, but that may be all we can do all summer. Should we take the initiative, or take the stance now that we are going to close the pools for the summer and let our staff know that so they can look elsewhere for other jobs? Or do we say tentatively we are going to postpone opening until July 1st and then set a special meeting of this committee probably at the end of May to revisit it and make that decision based on where we are at with the Badger Bounce Back Plan, so that then we can let our staff know. I mean, our staffing is probably the biggest issue, and I think that's a big issue for the local pools too in Rothschild, Schofield, and Weston, is we can't keep stringing our kids along about whether or not they have a job, and so we need to help them make that decision, looking at the safety of our pools. So yes, I would like a motion whether we tentatively postpone till July 1, or if we make the decision to say we are not going to open.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I would like to make the motion then to postpone the opening of the pools till July 1st.
Very good. So we would make a final decision on it. Ms. Polly, could we do that at our June 2 meeting, or would you need a meeting ahead of that?
We could probably do it at the June 2nd meeting, as long as we definitely had a decision that day.
Okay. So, Mr. Larson, your motion would be to postpone the decision until our June 2 meeting?
Correct, to postpone the decision till our June 2 meeting for opening the pools July 1st.
Okay. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second that, Mr. Gill. I'm a little concerned about the date or fixing the date so in cement for the second. If we feel it would behoove us to have a special meeting, like, a few days or a week earlier to address things like employment, that we have that flexibility built in.
That's a good point. Perhaps Mr. Larson would agree to change the wording of the motion to a meeting that we would decide at a meeting no later than June 2.
I'm okay with that, sure.
Very good. Is that okay with you as a second then, Mr. Neal? We didn't hear you. Give a thumbs up.
Yes, that's okay with me.
Very good. Do you have any handle, Ms. Polly, on the sentiments of our partners in Schofield, Rothschild, Weston?
Yes, and if they're on the line, they can speak as well. But from our meeting this morning, I think Rothschild Schofield is leaning more towards not opening because of financial reasons, which we also have to consider as well. And like I mentioned, the loss of revenue. They have some major concerns with staffing as well, and losing their staff or having their staff apply elsewhere. We are in a little bit different situation because we have 3 pools that if we don't have enough staff, we could choose to open 1 or 2 versus all 3. If we decide at all to open them, they don't have that same ability. So there is concern there. There is concern, Weston is a larger pool than ours. I know they have a little bit of concerns with, is 35 people even feasible for them to run, because they have a bigger facility than our pools. That's a really low number for them. They are also working with the Y to staff their pool this summer due to some staffing change. So I know they also have we all have staffing concerns. I think that's the sentiment across the board. I also know from our discussion this morning that we want to make sure that we are, as a unified area, working on this together so that it doesn't look like one community's doing this and the other community's not, because we are all in this together and we are trying to do what works for all of us. So as long as...
Palatable for Weston?
What?
Is it palatable for Weston to wait until June 2?
Sean, do you want to
Sean,
speak
you
at
with
all
us?
to that?
We are having a discussion at our board level tonight also about the pool. And really, like Jamie said, our staff deadline really is this week to determine if we're going to try to open by June 6th. I think the July 1st date, I don't think is necessarily palatable. but I believe they would be willing to wait maybe another week or two to determine if we could possibly open like mid-June. That way, we get a bigger part of the season, and maybe things will go in favor our way as far as the virus, and maybe we could reach that maximum level by mid to late July or something that would allow us. 50 people is pretty hard for a facility that has a capacity of 860.
Right.
Could charge a premium. That's all the room you're gonna have.
I guess I just don't want to see, the most important part is yes, everybody talks about the staff and stuff, but the children. The children, if we can, give them the pools, they need something to do. They're off for summer.
Very good. Thank you. I think a lot of good points have been made. Does anybody else on the committee have any comments before we vote?
Holly?
Yes?
Hi. This is Craig McEwen. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Mr. McEwen. Yep.
With the permission of the chair, I'd like to make a few comments, if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead, Mr. McCune.
He's from Rothschild.
Right.
Thank you.
I know that guy.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the discussion. I've been on the whole time. I didn't want to interrupt the committee. But I agree that with the 50 person, which is actually probably 40 or 35, it would not be feasible for us to open the pool. But I do agree that we should be consistent countywide. And speaking with the health officer, Joan Boyer, she does not feel that we're going to get the level 2 or level 3 anytime soon either. And I just think we need to be upfront with the public, what we plan on doing, to keep putting this off till June or July. I don't think is showing good faith to them. I know I want our pool to open. We have our staff all hired. We have 16 guards that are committed to coming back, but it's going to be difficult to even do the training with them to get up and get everybody done with the orientation. And I just think we've heard over and over from we're supposed to listen to the experts, and from what Joan had told me, and we have a Board of Health meeting tomorrow, and I'm on that committee. I just, like I said, I want to be consistent countywide, but I agree with Sean too that if it's that 50, it wouldn't be feasible. I mean, we run a deficit every year like everybody else does, and I understand that the service that we offer to our community, and it's very important. And I just think it's going to be hard to operate with that number. Plus, I agree that the adults are going to be more of an issue, I think, than the children that are in the pool. But I just, like I said, it's a tough decision. And like I said, we're leaning towards not opening, but I'm taking into account what we discussed here at your committee meeting, and before we move forward with anything in solid, I would like us to all be on the same, thoughts plan as far as what we're going to do with the pool. That's, like I said, I appreciate you letting me sit in and listen to this committee meeting, and I appreciate your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, and appreciate staff arranging for the other communities to be kind of with us here as we talk through this. Any other committee comments, or are we ready to vote? Hearing none, all those in favor of postponing this decision to no later than June 2, and hope that the outcome is a good one. All those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Needle says aye.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a 5-0 vote in favor of hanging tough and crossing our fingers. Thank you for that, and we can move on to item 7, which is also a little bit of a tough one, but maybe easier. Ms. Polly?
Yes, so one quick comment about the pool discussion. So I will reach out again with Joan, our health officer, and if anything changes where we can make this decision sooner, I will contact you, Mr. Chair, and we can call a special meeting then.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Second one, thank you, Sean and Craig, for being on the line with us today for that. I will keep
And
in
Karen.
touch. And Karen, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on here is a funding request from JoJo's Jungle. So JoJo's Jungle, for those that may not be aware, is a large inclusive playground that is going to be, or is almost done, at Brockmeyer Park on the west side of town. It was 100% fundraised by Mr. Patrick Porter and his family, a little over a $2 million playground that he's putting in there that the city gave him permission to use there. So his original budget was $2.4 million, and after 4 years of trying to fundraise, when I started, I talked with him and trying to get it to where we could get it built. It was an amazing structure, amazing amenity for the community when it does get to open. So he was able to cut a few things out of it to get it down to the money he had already raised, and cut out that about $400,000 that he had left to fundraise. So with that, he had a pretty strong contingency in his budget for the building of the park. We are almost to the final phase of putting down the poured-in-place surfacing, which is set to go. It was set to go down next week. We postponed it just a bit because we have to work on some of the base there. But with the fact that the playgrounds are all closed and can't be opened anyway, it's not going up against any timeline that we have. But with that, one of the things he cut out was a water feature, kind of spray pad labyrinth that I included in your packet, so you can kind of see. It's not any standing water. It's just a little sprinkler system. It's used right off of the city water that's there out of the building, much like our 400 block or jumping jets, just at a much, or the River Life jumping jets, but just at a much smaller scale. And then there's a labyrinth where there's water that runs through it, and the kids can play and move the features so they can redirect the water and just play with the water there. So I also mentioned in my write-up that that piece of equipment that he took out, if I can find my agenda summary, it totals about $162,800 for that spray area and labyrinth. He's, with the contingency that's left over, what he's not using of that contingency, he is about $25,000 shy of being able to add that piece of equipment back into the park. And that is even with, right now, it's being plumbed and everything ready for it. It's just a matter of getting it in the ground. So in talking with him, he's still looking to other funders to try to help fundraise that amount. But also, one of the things that came to mind was the city council last year budgeted $100,000 out of TID 7, I believe. And if I have that wrong, I apologize. But that was to make the parking lot ADA accessible. That's what our original quote was a while ago, to make that happen, and the city was responsible for that. We have been working with contractors. We are able to do some of it ourselves, and some of it Public Works is able to do at a smaller cost than what we originally planned. And we are doing that work for about $30,000 in total. So we have $70,000 left over from that allocated money from that TID funding. So it's not out of the general fund, it's out of that TID district. So that is an idea that I was bringing forward to the committee tonight, is if we want to see that amenity added back to the park, Mr. Horder is able to fund the majority of that, and if the city would reallocate or recommend, this is a recommendation you would make to our finance committee, to reallocate $25,000 of that unspent $70,000 from that project to this park. It's a city park. It will be a city amenity. It will be our responsibility once it's complete. Make that recommendation, and then we can go ahead and get that water feature added back in to that park. And maybe we'll have it done by the time we can actually open the playgrounds. We were hoping for a Memorial Day grand opening of that playground. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen with the order that all playgrounds have to remain closed. And in talking with our health officer on that as well. There is no end in sight right now for opening our playgrounds because of the hard surface concern, unfortunately. So hopefully we'll have it all done when we can open it. So that's where this is coming from. It's a request he is making to the committee. That's a source of funding that I'm recommending rather than taking it from any other, we don't have any other funding set aside for a project like this.
I would,
I would move to approve the reallocation.
very good. Thank you, Mr. Neal. There is a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Larson has seconded the motion. I applaud staff and administration for being able, keeping their eye on the financial ball and achieving the parking lot work at less than had been expected. And obviously, I think we all cringed when we saw that on the agenda. We're going to be asked for some money, but this is, appears to be an excellent solution.
Mr. Killian has his hand up.
Mr. Killian?
Yes, thank you. And I think fiscally, the $25,000 amount compared to the $2 million and roughly private funding that was raised, I mean, you're looking at maybe a little over 1%. And if we could do that on economic development deals, our ROI number would look very good. So I think this is positive, and I think it's a special project. And the playground is unique in what it offers in terms of accessibility for children. I would like to, though, offer an amendment to my colleagues, which allows this public asset to be enjoyed by all children and families in our city, including children and families in areas of the city that may be more financially modest or impoverished, and also making sure that it is quite accessible to children and families of color. And that is why I would like an amendment to, in addition to this funding, include investigation into transit facilitation programs for environmental justice populations in Wausau to arrive and return from this playground. And if I have some time, I'd like to provide some background on that. And I feel this is a great asset, and much like we just talked about with the pools, I feel like a public asset should be enjoyed by all, particularly one which offers accessibility and amenities to perhaps some children that need them most. So today I called Metro Ride and I asked about their routes from various areas in the city that, based on the EPA environmental justice map, show that they over-index on poverty or minority statistics. And I asked Metro Ride if there were routes from those areas. Actually, I just asked about the routes in general to Brockmeyer Park. And what I learned today is that our transit apparently only goes out to about 28th Avenue, and that transit in that area of the city is generally limited. It was a brief discussion this afternoon, but the gentleman provided some very insightful information that I spoke with briefly. And so really what I'm asking for, and I'm not saying my support is contingent upon it, I will support this either way, but I would like my colleagues, if it would be possible, to add to this resolution just language kind of including that an investigation into transit routes and transit facilitation programs for Wausau environmental justice segments to and from this playground. It would really just require that investigation initially, and I think it would be very positive for all the kids and families in our community. Thank you for the consideration on that.
Very good. We could either vote separately. Mr. Neal, is that amendment okay with you? Acceptable?
I don't know if it's in our purview. I'm with it in spirit for sure. A transit issue, I don't know if coming out of this committee is more in the way of a recommendation to another committee. So I'm with it. I don't know if it's our purview.
I'm wondering if it could be handled by basically having park department staff directed to explore this with the Metro Ride or any other provider to possibly do this periodically over the summer months.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, and who was our second?
Mr.
Mr.
Larson.
Larson? Is that acceptable to you?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Mr. Killian has his hand raised again.
pardon me?
Mr. Killian has his.
Okay, Mr. Killian?
Oh, yes, and I was just going to comment briefly on what Alder Neal had said, and I agree that it may not be within our purview, but even interfacing, if the proper personnel interface with the transit committee, if we're able to forward something along to that committee, or if we have to call a special meeting, if we can do it for the pools, then I'd like to also consider it for this. Whatever it would take procedurally within our purview, I would feel comfortable with whatever other members of the committee are comfortable with in that vein.
I think we could certainly explore it. That wouldn't be too tough. Ms. Polly?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think this is something we can look at and I can put on for a future agenda item. I think we have a little bit of time because the playgrounds aren't open right now and they're not allowed to be open, which gives us a little bit of time to look at this further, but I can definitely work with the Metro Ride Department and see what it would take to get a stop put there. And what those options might be. That probably would have to go back to another committee, but then
Yeah.
I can put it on ours.
Yeah. As a member of the Metro Ride, the Transit Commission, Mr. Killian's information is correct. The furthest the bus reaches now is the women's community, which is a couple blocks west of 28th. But I'm kind of expecting that there's going to be a big honking problem trying to put it on a route, but I think that periodic runs could be out there. But anyway, that's something that staff can explore and bring back to us. Any other comments on this? I think we're pretty good on our motion. That we would go ahead and add to the motion that we want staff to look into ways to get kids from the rest of the city out to that park and that facility. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you, we're doing well. And we can shift to educational items that Ms. Fowley has for us.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the educational items, the first one we usually put on is our dog park special committee update. We haven't had a dog park special committee in a while. Since all of the information about the COVID-19 has come out and we've reduced our meetings down, we haven't had that meeting just because we don't have a lot to discuss. So instead of calling a meeting, we've just haven't had one. So where we're at is the committee is working on some signage. As you may have, I believe at the last committee meeting, which I was not at, but the last one in February, the committee approved the naming of the dog park to Two Hearts Dog Park. So we've been working with that organization on some of the signage and I just got the proof back actually yesterday or today. So we'll be working on that, and I'll be bringing something to that committee here in the near future. Now that it's drying out, we'll be able to do some grading work on there. I just reviewed the plans from engineering department. They're going to help us with the parking lot and the concrete curbing and the entrance pad, and then we'll get the fencing in. So we're still working on it from a staffing perspective, but the committee just has not met. I do believe they want to meet sometime soon to maybe have another fundraiser once establishments can be open and back operational from where they were thinking of having it. Mr. Neal, do you have anything to add to that?
I just wanted to point out, while Madam Mayor is still with us, that Mr. Nutting and myself were both on that committee since its inception, and we haven't had a reappointment to the committee from council. So I would be willing to step back into that committee. And that's pretty funny, step back in, when you talk about a dog park. And I don't know if we need another council member or not, but just to say, Mr. Gunning was on it before. Pretty excited to see this thing open up this summer, and it would be some great news.
I do have an update on that, Mr. Neal. Thank you for bringing that up. So I did check with our city clerk on this, and this committee appointment is actually by the chair of the park committee. Gets to appoint the 2 members from the council to sit on that committee and the other members, and then it's approved by council. So I will get that on the next agenda for our committee to.
Sounds good.
to
Yeah, it
appoint.
would be nice if we'd have continuity on that committee and have them all there on the happy day when we open that thing up.
Yeah. So if you are interested in being on that committee, you
Yeah.
can let me or Mr. Peckham know.
Mr. Larson?
Where is this dog park and when is the anticipated opening?
Sure. It's on 4th Avenue, so it's just down below the post office. It's a 2-acre parcel that's on the east side of the railroad tracks there by River Drive kind of area. We were hoping to have it up and operational by late summer. Because we're doing this in-house for the most part, we are working with engineering and our public works, and we had some ruts in there last year. We have to get the seating established, but it is the goal to have it ready by late summer.
So you're talking down by Oak Island and stuff in that area?
Correct,
Just-
but it's off of 4th Avenue, so just up from there, as if
Okay.
you're going to the post office, it's just down the hill from the post
Okay,
office.
thank you.
You know where the city buses are kept?
Yes.
It's right
I
west
mean, where
of
they
that.
all, city buses just all congregate, right?
At the garage, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's, not sure what other business, but there's a place called, I think they call it the Bark Academy or something like that that's in there now. But yeah, on your way home, just drive down, just drop down by the little post office on 4th and look on your right.
Okay, thank you.
Very
Is
good.
that 4th Street? I said 4th Avenue, I think 4th Street, right?
4th Street would be correct.
Okay, yeah,
Behind Hadley's Office Supply,
yeah.
the old
Got it, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those, before they cut down that tree, where that tree was. Anyway, thank you for that. Keep on going.
Okay, so for project updates, I already talked about JoJo's Jungle. So each month I give an update on kind of where we're at with some projects and programs. So far, we've got some things still happening, but neighborhood park playground installation. Last year, you saw that, you may have seen, I keep forgetting we have new council members right now, but you may have seen that the playground at Oak Island got removed. We did get a community development block grant to replace that playground with port-in-place surfacing. We chose the port-in-place surfacing because that playground actually flooded last year and went all the way up over the wood chips, so this will help allow that. But as soon as the river goes down and it dries out, the company is set to come and install that. We usually install our own playground, so we'll finish up installing the Pleasant View playground that we started last year. That had some donation money with it, so we'll be having a grand opening on that. And then this year, we will install playgrounds at Forest Park Playground and Schofield Park Playground. So those will be coming forth later this year. We also did receive a community development block grant, I see, you could say it twice, for Marathon Park Playground. We're gonna take out 2 of those smaller playgrounds and make 1 larger playground. That will be designed coming up here later on. But like I said in here a couple of times is, this is all, we'll open these playgrounds when we can open them. Right now, we have a little bit of time because they're closed, so. We've been working on opening up the boat launches. We've added some riprap and some piers to Gilbert Park and to Schofield Park. The boating and all of our ramps in the city and the county have been very busy right now. They are open. People do need a boat launch pass or a day pass to launch there, but people are out and using them, so that's good to see. And then park and trail maintenance, we are getting everything up, our water systems up, tree plantings. The parks have been used more than they've been used in a really long time, which is great to see people out and using the parks. But it does add the amount of staff time that we need to put with the parks. We will be coming out this week with a document on our website which bathrooms are open and which ones are staying closed based on the amount of staffing we have. The CDC requirements for bathrooms is that they have to be cleaned once a day. A lot of our bathrooms were always just cleaned once a week. So that puts a much different demand on our staff to make sure we get to all of our city and county bathrooms once a day. So some will remain closed. A lot of more of the county ones will remain closed that don't have amenities. But we will have some city ones closed, for instance, like Brockmeyer Park. That park includes a playground and athletic fields. And right now, the athletic fields are not allowed to be used by organized sports, and the playground's closed. So we don't see any need to really have that bathroom open because there's no organized activities there. So we'll be coming out with that list. We'll be tweaking it. We're just working on our maintenance that way. We're working on cleanup from the winter. We still have leaf cleanup, debris cleanup. Our shelters are not being rented right now until at least the end of June, for the most part, for all of them, because of the guidelines and the social or the physical distancing requirements. But we are still working on getting them up and ready for when we can rent them out. And then we're working on tree planting. You'll see a lot of trees going in the spring here, and some trimming and stump removals. So we're out. Our crews are still busy. Mr. Neal has his hand up. Mr. Peckham.
Very good. Mr. Neal?
Yes, thank you. On the tree care item, I just want to throw in a little anecdote. During this ongoing current redoing of Kickbush Street, I did get a call from some weeks back from a neighbor over there concerned about the wholesale removal of trees. I went took a drive over and walked Kickbush, rated the height of the tree removal. It was quite a scene. A lot of trees were taken down, and for a variety of reasons. I mean, some of them were in bad shape. They were, too old, or they were crickety, or they might have been logistically in a problematic position with regards to, I don't know, water lines or something like that. But anecdotally, the neighbor had talked to one of the workers and just asked, "Why did you cut down this tree? It did not seem to be sick. It was a good tree. It's mature. Didn't seem to be causing any trouble." And the neighbor was told, "Well, probably because it was an ash." I brought this up, with the director of public works and whatnot. So it is something we're looking into. But I think the committee, this is also our purview, should be aware that we do have a priority placed on our street trees in road construction projects, and in all cases where it's doable, to save those trees, even if it's to have the sidewalk kind of do a little curve around the bole of a tree, so we don't have to dig down and cut major roots, which also can create tip over hazards. So we do have policy. I don't know, maybe we have to look at a better interplay between the Parks Department and engineering and forestry, person and all that, to make sure that we're not just kind of like acting by habit, and that every tree is given its full report before it comes down.
I can speak to that.
Thank you. We keep that in mind.
Do you want me to, can I speak to that real quick?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Neal, for that. I did have a conversation with Mr. Lindman a few weeks ago about working on our street program, knowing the discussion last year when we did the forestry specifications manual and specifically the sidewalks. So I know he is very committed to working on that. I think this year those projects may have got started a little bit sooner than we had the time to discuss more in depth, but I know moving forward that is something that we're going to work very closely on, and getting our forester involved in helping make those plans. We also do, just as a reminder, when you mentioned it was there might have been an ash tree, we do have an emerald ash borer plan in place as well that I can get out to the committee, and that'll be an update that I give you, because although the emerald ash borer hasn't been found here in Wausau yet, it's been found in Rim Mountain. And the idea that it's very close means that it's most likely here. And with that is something that if we don't find it early enough, or we don't start treating it, we'll see a high devastation of our ash trees at one time, which will put people at risk, as well as a lot of work for our department to try to get those risk trees down. So one of the part of that ash management plan is that when we do a street reconstruction that requires removal of trees, that's our opportunity to take those ash trees down. And when we do plantings, that's when we'll plant a new species and diversify that species on that street. So our goal is to save as many of the trees on our streets as we can, but our plan for ash also does allow the opportunity during those constructions for that, to have that time for those to be removed. Our idea right now is that we'll remove as many of the ash trees as we can that are for sure dead, diseased, or dying, are part of construction projects, and then other ones, whatever's left, will be treated over a 2-year period. We treated a number of trees last year, and we will continue with that treatment this year to prolong the life of those trees if the ash borer does come.
Very good. Maybe we'll luck out and it will turn out that the emerald ash borer is susceptible to the coronavirus, and then we'll take care of that. Anyway, for future agenda items, the obvious one is the opening of the pools. Does anybody have anything at this time that they would like to suggest? Usual opportunities between now and the next meeting will still be there? Yes?
Mr. Killian has his hand up.
Very good.
Thank you, Alder Neal and Alder Peckham. One thing that had been brought to my attention in the past week, and I'd reached out to you, Miss Polly, about it, is there's some community interest in how beavers are being dealt with in some of the parks in terms of the tree protection and so forth, and that had been brought to my attention by a citizen, and I think there's been some considerable community discussion on that. Would it be possible to have that as perhaps an educational item so that the community can learn kind of what's going on with that, and even have a chance to express some of their feelings on both sides of the issue? That was one that had been kind of, as I said, brought to my attention. And the second one perhaps does not need to be for next meeting, but really I think that there's no need to delay it either. One thing that had become evident when the Riverside Park had been surveyed was that apparently areas of it that appear to be in the park are really parts of the adjacent properties to the west. So, 3M's got a little property that juts into the park through the forest area. I don't know if other property owners on the western side do as well, but that had been surveyed perhaps as part of REI's phase 1. I think that, environmental is not the only concern and consideration on getting some separation between property which is in the park and property which is not in the park for a variety of reasons. So if we could add also looking at that survey that was done and fencing options to separate Riverside Park from the western industrial properties. That is one agenda item I'd like to have looked at, please.
I think we need to get Public Works involved in that, but that's a possibility. Thank you. Mr. Larson?
I would also like to listen and hear about what kind of upgrades or what we've heard about the testing that is supposed to have been done down at Riverside Park there. I saw there was some poles or some staked out there where they were going to take some tests, and when are we going to expect the results?
I'm not sure exactly when the results are going to be back. Mr. Killian might actually have a better handle on the timetable, but they did, per committee recommendations, they did stake out locations, and they did advise us that the stakes were in the ground and allowed us to, Mr. Killian was, as a member of the Citizens for Clean Wausau, was advised of the fact that the stakes were in, and so we were able to go and look at where they were. There were no objections, and the I think it was about 2 weeks ago that the tests were actually done. And so the samples went to the lab. Lab needs to analyze them and send them back. And so as soon as we have information, that will be shared with the committee and with the rest of the city. And the lab results will also be sent to the state Department of Health Services people, toxicologists, and they will give us their opinion on any safety concerns that have been discovered there. So, yeah, that will be on tap for as soon as possible.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Very good. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Ms. Watson, I think you want to do that.
I would move to adjourn.
Motion from Ms. Watson to adjourn. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Killian. All those in favor of going home, raise your hand or say aye. Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Appreciate everybody's participation, and we're doing good. Thanks.